When my kids were little, one of my favorite strategies was to take familiar ingredients and present them in a variety of ways. On today's episode of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods, I'm going to show you 3 dishes that just might expand your kids and even some adults' culinary horizons. They're delicious, easy to make, and sure to be real family favorites. If your family's like mine, they probably love pizza. And don't get me wrong, a pizza crust well made is a fantastic thing in my opinion. However, what I really love are the toppings. So this dish is going to really make toppings the star of the show by putting them in portobello mushroom caps. So we're going to start by cleaning out our mushrooms. You can see I've done a couple here already. You just scrape out the gills and a little bit of the flesh, and you want to do that and try not to poke a hole in the mushrooms, which is not too daunting really. A grapefruit spoon is great for this task, but you can use any small spoon. You could use a small knife if you've got mad knife skills. I was too worried about making a hole with a knife. And you want to cut away as much as you can to make a good sort of bowl-sized shape inside. When you're choosing your mushroom caps, look for ones that are not as flat so that you do have room for more fillings inside. Otherwise, they may slide off when you're cooking. So these ones were a really great shape for this dish. So I've just about finished scraping out this last one, and then I can set it aside with the others. The next step is to get your pizza toppings ready. Now I'm going to turn on my burner because we're going to saute them because they're packed in there, unlike being spread out thin on a pizza. So they're not going to cook as well on their own. So I like to give them a head start. So we'll just get this rolling, and we'll start by cutting an onion. And don't mind the fan noise from the burner. It's just the easiest way to do this right in front of you. And for 3 mushrooms, I'm going to do about a half an onion. You could use red onion if you prefer, or sweet onion, or because it's pizza, use whatever toppings you like. And that's the great thing. Family members could even each make their own mushroom cap, or several if they wanted to have a couple, using whatever pizza toppings they prefer. So it's one of those sky's the limit kind of dishes, which is really a lot of fun. And we like green pepper on our pizza, so that's why I'm going to throw that in. You could absolutely use ground beef, bacon, all those good things. And of course, it's super easy to make vegetarian by omitting the meat. There we go. Pretty simple. And my family also likes olives, so I'm going to chop those and also give them a few minutes in the pan to soften them up. And we'll just give this a little shake. And then I'm going to take the stems from the mushrooms and chop those up because I really like mushrooms. I suppose you have to if you're going to make this dish since it's based on portobello mushrooms. There we go, just nice coarse chopping for that. And I'll give it a little stir. You just really want them to soften, so depending on how many toppings you have and the heat of your pan, it shouldn't take more than a couple of minutes for that to work out. The mushrooms take even less time because they're so soft already. And the smaller you cut things, of course, the quicker that they will cook. So it's nice to have things sort of a consistent size so that they all cook evenly. I think I'm just going to do one more bit of mushroom because that's a fair amount of toppings. And of course you can use whatever pizza sauce you like, and you could make it spicy, mild. Some people like to do this with a white pizza sauce, which is kind of fun, sort of like a garlicky Alfredo style sauce. It's a super flexible dish, so it's part of what makes it so family friendly. All right, these are just about ready. So I'm going to get my pizza sauce measured out. And for 3 of these, I use about a half a cup of sauce. You just want to keep things in proportion. You can absolutely do a much bigger batch. You could even do just 1 mushroom cap at a time, but just keep the fillings in proportion, as I said. All right, those are looking nicely softened now. And at this point, you have a couple of options. You can put the pizza sauce right in the pan and then transfer things into the mushrooms. You can also mix the cheese right in if you want, which is kind of fun, or you can do a cheesy layer on top. So I'm going to transfer the vegetables into a bowl to mix them with the pizza sauce. They smell so good already. It's already smelling like pizza time, which is pretty exciting for me. There we go. And then I'm going to stir in my pizza sauce. And I've got some peppered salami that I'm going to mix in because that's what I prefer instead of pepperoni. Cooked prosciutto is a nice addition. You could do ham as well. If you're a pineapple pizza fan, you could do that. Like I said, endless combinations possible. And now this is all mixed evenly. So I'm just going to put a tiny bit of the cheese in because I like that idea of cheese in the middle and cheese on the top. And then we're going to spoon it into our prepared mushroom caps. So you can see that if they were flat, you wouldn't have as much room to put in a generous amount of toppings. And the mushrooms, of course, will soften as they bake, and the fillings will just finish cooking and get all nice and hot and bubbly. So it's just a great thing. This would be a fun setup if you wanted to have like a pizza making station and get the toppings ready for people, put them out in little bowls so you could pre-cook the vegetables separately, and then it'd be easy for folks to assemble their own stuffed portobello caps with their favorite pizza elements. I'm very happy with that amount of stuffing. They're all kind of even. There we go. And last but not least, we'll put our cheese on top. There we go. And I'm going to put these in the oven for about 15 minutes. You just want to keep an eye on them to make sure that they're bubbly and that the mushrooms have sort of started to collapse a little bit, which means that they're cooked and softening. So we'll get these in the oven, and then when they're all done, I'll bring them out to show you. All right, we've got our pizza stuffed portobello mushroom caps out of the oven, and oh my gosh, do they ever smell good. You can serve them as is. You could put a sprinkle of pepper on it. Hot tip from a friend from Maniwaki, a little sprinkle of white vinegar is amazing on pizza. Hot honey is another option. Or you could also just chop some fresh herbs or put them on your serving plate. Just makes them look a little bit more colorful. And these are sure to be, as I said, a real family favorite. Coming up next, I've got a magical recipe that transforms even the saddest frozen corn into something spectacularly delicious. You can serve this salad as is or on a bed of greens and at room temperature or chilled. It can be so tricky to time your avocado purchases. It seems like they're rock hard one day and mushy the next, but I have a solution. Wrap them in foil, even when they're still green and hard, put them in a 200-degree oven for 10 minutes, and they will be ripe and ready to use. The salad I'm about to make would be a great sidekick for those pizza stuffed portobellos, and you might want to make a double batch because it can be an excellent lunch the next day. Frozen corn. Whoever thought of roasting it? I certainly hadn't, but it's a really great option. We're going to add some chopped onion to it because I love the combination of sweet corn and tangy onion. Give it just a little bit of a stir. Drizzle it with just a little bit of olive oil, and this is really important. People think that if you add more oil when you're roasting something, it's going to get crispier. The opposite is actually true, so you really want to be just using enough to lightly coat it and no more. A little salt and pepper, again, to just give it a little bit more flavor. And that's all you need to prep the vegetables, the roasted vegetables for the salad. Give it a stir, and then I'm going to spread it on this parchment-lined baking sheet. I love parchment paper because it makes cleanup so easy, and it's actually compostable, so I don't feel badly about putting it in the waste. There we go. And I'll spread that out a little bit because it'll roast more quickly. And it takes about 20 to 25 minutes. You want to make sure the onions are starting to char and the corn is getting a really deep golden color, and that just enhances its natural sweetness. So I'm going to set that aside because I've already got some roasted corn and onions here to work with. And you can see if you compare the color of the two sets of corn, look how bright and yellow this one is. So I'm just going to be sure to scrape out the last few bits from this bowl because we don't want raw onions and corn in our salad. And now I'm going to add this to the bowl. It does shrink down a fair bit, so when you're judging for quantities, you want to make sure that you have enough for the crowd that you might be planning to feed. Now to this, I'm going to add some more fresh vegetables, so you get kind of a nice counterpoint of flavors and textures happening. And I've given this kind of a Tex-Mex or a Southwest sort of flavor profile, so avocado and tomato and zucchini are my add-ins of choice for this salad. You could absolutely use red pepper instead of the tomato. You do want something with a bit of color contrast, and cucumber maybe in place of the zucchini, but if you like avocado, you're really going to like how well it plays with the corn. And you want the sizes of things, even though they're different textures, to be fairly uniform. It makes the dish look like it's just more cohesive. So I'm going to cut the tomato and avocado and zucchini in about 1 centimeter size pieces. And of course, you can roast the corn ahead of time, as you see from my bowl. You can also chop the vegetables ahead of time and refrigerate them. So then when it's time to assemble your salad, it's going to be super quick. I'm just going to put in half the tomato for now, and I'm going to see how the proportions are looking, because that's a fairly large tomato. And we'll do the zucchini next. I really like raw zucchini. A lot of people don't realize how great it can be in a salad, and I love that it holds its shape really nicely, so it's not going to get kind of soft or wilted. Peppers would be another option if you wanted to use green peppers. Like a combo of green and red pepper could be really, really nice as well. And again, the same size pieces approximately. This was a nice slender zucchini. If it was larger, you might even consider grating it, coarsely grating it, so that the pieces are not overwhelming. And avocado. I love avocado. So I'm going to peel them by quartering them, and hopefully they'll slip right out of their skins. There we go. And I'm going to use the whole avocado again just because I love it so much. And when the avocado's this ripe and perfect, you don't want to risk having it start to go brown if you saved it for another recipe. There we go. They do sell avocado devices that will extract the flesh in pieces or sometimes even cubes, but I just really like using a knife, and I find you have more control that way over the size of the pieces. And then it's also super easy to pop it in the bowl. So there's the base of our salad. And I'm going to give it just a little bit of a toss so that we have all the vegetables kind of showing. And now we're going to make a quick vinaigrette. So I've used rice vinegar here. I've got it already in my jar. I love shaking my vinaigrettes in jars because it means that there's very little cleanup, and you know things are going to get really well blended. To this, I'm going to add a little bit of maple syrup. You could use honey. You could use agave syrup if you prefer. A little bit of salt to balance out the acidity, and that's a tip. If you're making a vinaigrette and you're finding that it's tasting too sour to you, sometimes the temptation is to add sugar to sweeten it, but in fact, if you add more salt, it'll balance out the acidity. And I've got smoked paprika and chili powder and garlic powder here. So as I mentioned, for our kind of Tex-Mex sort of profile. I'm going to give that a shake, and then I'm going to add the oil. And this allows the salt to start to dissolve in the vinegar. Once you add the oil, it makes it very hard for the salt to dissolve. And usually it's about a 3-to-2 ratio. So with 2 tablespoons of vinegar, I would add 3 tablespoons of olive oil. And one more quick shake. And again, the dressing could easily be made ahead of time, just like prepping your vegetables. So it could be a very, very quick dish to throw together at dinner time. And I always start with just some of the dressing. You can always add more, but if you overdress it and have a puddle in the bottom, you're going to be disappointed. Give that a little bit of a stir, and I do check right to the bottom so I can see that there isn't any dressing on the bottom yet, which is great news. So I'm going to add just another spoonful. The avocados do soak up some of the dressing. And now we'll check the bottom again. Yep, that looks looking perfect. So we're going to transfer that to our serving bowl. And it's always nice to do that because the bowl you mix it in is going to have sort of little bits of spices stuck to the side and whatever. So by putting it in a fresh bowl, it just looks a lot nicer when it gets to the table. There we go. And to finish it, I've got some fresh herbs here. I've got cilantro and parsley because I like that combination. And it's tempting to put it all over the top, but sometimes it's fun just to arrange them on one side so that you can still see the salad. And then when people go to serve themselves, they'll obviously be getting a portion of the herbs in every serving. So here is our roasted corn and avocado salad.
If you love pie but find it to be too much work sometimes, you'll probably enjoy this next recipe for Southern-style cobbler loaded with fruit. You can make it with gluten-free flour if you like.
I love making fruit cobblers, and you might think they're desserts, but to me they could also be a great breakfast treat. For this one, it's a Southern style cobbler, which means the fruit goes on the top of the batter, and I think it makes for a really pretty presentation. So we've started by melting some butter in our baking dish, and now we're going to make the batter. We've got all-purpose flour, granulated sugar, baking powder, a little bit of salt, not too much because of our butter, we don't need to add that much salt. And my favorite seasoning for this type of dish, which is freshly ground cardamom. This is from Green Cardamom Pods, excuse me. You can use cinnamon if you prefer, a little bit of nutmeg would be nice, but I think cardamom just has a really nice complexity. So we'll sprinkle all those in. Get our spoon ready, give it a stir so everything's nicely distributed. And to this, we're going to add some milk with a few drops of vanilla in it. And this would be a great application for gluten-free flour, if that's your preference. And you could absolutely use a non-dairy milk. I think an oat milk would be particularly nice in this. So in goes the milk and vanilla. And just give it a quick stir until it's kind of a smooth batter. It's going to be a lot like a pancake batter, you'll find. And you want to make sure that there's no dry spots showing. The baking powder will start to activate, so you'll see some bubbling happening almost immediately. And don't worry, it may, like I said, you may think it's a little thin, but we're not aiming for anything more than a pancake batter. So now I'm going to pour this into our baking dish. And it will distribute itself pretty well, so you don't have to worry too much about that. I'm going to switch to a rubber scraper because I don't want to leave any of this great batter behind. I love the little flecks of cardamom in it. It just lets me know that it's going to taste so good, and it's even more aromatic when it's baking because of the cardamom. It has a bolder smell, I would say, than cinnamon. So there we go with that layer. And now our fruit. I have frozen peaches here. I froze a whole lot this summer when they were in season and super, super fresh. Really easy to do. Just blanch them, slice them, dip the slices in lemon juice, spread them out on a baking tray, and then pop them in a bag. And to them, I'm going to add some frozen blueberries. I like the contrast of color and texture. And these are both still frozen fruits. You don't have to thaw them ahead of time. So I'm going to give them a little stir, and I'm going to sprinkle them with a little bit more cardamom. That's how much I love it. It'll just perk up the fruit even more. And then I'm going to distribute that over the batter. You just kind of want to go for an even distribution. It doesn't have to be really scientific. Now you can't prepare this whole dish ahead of time to be baked later, but you can bake it ahead of time if you prefer. The other option is to do as I did for my setup here and have all your ingredients ready. So if you were making this for a breakfast, for example, you could have everything ready, and then you just have to assemble it as I'm doing here. So that's a good option. The blueberries are really hiding in the bottom of my bowl, so I'll sprinkle those on at the very end. I'm happy with that. It's pretty evenly distributed. Maybe tuck one more over here and the last one here, and then I will get the blueberries out. When this bakes, it puffs up a lot. It's partly because of the baking powder, and then it will sort of slump back in its dish, but that's just normal behavior for a cobbler. And another great thing about this recipe is it doesn't have eggs in it, so if that's a concern for you, this is a really great option, and makes it also great with a non-dairy milk product and a non-dairy butter that you can make this for vegans. And the crowning touch for this is a little sprinkling of brown sugar, and that just helps to make kind of a crispness on the top that is really delightful with the nice, soft, sort of cakey layer that you get below. So just spoon it over sort of evenly. And because our batter is so thin, it does take a little bit longer for this to bake, generally about 35 or 40 minutes, so you'll need to plan your time accordingly. All right, this is looking so beautiful already. It's ready to go in the oven, and then we'll see what it looks like once it's cooked. Wow, does this ever look beautiful? I can't wait to dive in. This Southern style peach blueberry cobbler is a great dessert, as I mentioned, or great for breakfast, and you can enjoy it as is or with whipped cream or ice cream. With the right recipe, it's easy to pull together a delicious family-friendly meal, even on a busy weeknight. You could try these pizza stuffed portobello mushroom caps and this grilled corn and avocado salad, and why not top it off with Southern style peach blueberry cobbler? Enjoy!